Yasodanandana Braja Janahanda Jamuna Tira Jamuna Tira Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhana Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhana Suranandana Gaja Janananda Yasodanandana Gaja Janananda Yasodanandana Gaja Janananda Yamuna Tira Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Ego, Nitai Gaur, Jai Shri Radha. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, you, Gauranga, Jai Gaur Hari Bhava, Hari Bhava, Hari Bhava, Hari Bhava. Jai Gaur Hari Bhava, Hari Bhava, Hari Bhava, Hari Bhava. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Hare Ram Sankirtan ki jai, John Mustami Mahamohotsava ki jai. Wow. Not supposed to be. Nothing is for you. So much to talk about, but where to start? I'll read one verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto. This is from chapter number 3, the birth of Lord Krishna, just to set the stage for the advent of the Lord. And this is verse number, actually it's the first verse through the 5th verse in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 verses. So what we'll do is rather than do all the Sanskrit, we'll just take the first verse. Sri Sukha Uvacha Artha Sarva Ganopeta Kala Parama Sobanaha Yaryeva Jana Jarmarksam Santarksa Grahatarakam Sri Sukha Uvacha Atha Sarva Ganopeta Kala Parama Sobanaha Yaryeva Jana Janmarksam Santarksa Grahatarakam Sri Sukha Uvacha Artha Sarva Ganopeta Kala Parama Sobanaha Yaryeva Jana Janmarksam Santarksa Grahatarakam. Someone chant.
Shri Sukha Uvacha Atha Sarva Gunopeta Ada Parama Shobhanaha Yaryeva Jana Janmarksham Santarksha Grahatarakam. Shri Sukha Uvacha Sarva Gunopeta
Ladies? Sri Sukha Uvacha. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, Atha, on the occasion of the Lord's appearance, Sarva, all around, Guna Upeta, endowed with material attributes or facilities, Kala, a favorable time, Paramasobanaha, all auspicious and very favorable from all points of view. Yarhi, when, Eva, certainly, Ajana Janma Riksham, the constellation of stars known as Rohini, Shantariksa, none of the constellations were fierce, all of them were peaceful. Griha Tarakam, and the planets and stars like Asvini, Disha, all directions, Prasedu, appear very auspicious and peaceful. Ganganam, all of outer space, or the sky. Nirmala Udu Gana Udayam, in which all the auspicious stars were visible in the upper strata of the universe. Mahi, the earth. Mangala Bhuyasta Puragramma Raja Akaraha. Very good. Whose many cities, towns, pasturing grounds, and mines became auspicious and very neat and clean. Nadya, the rivers. Pasana Salila, the waters became clear. Rida, the lakes are large reservoirs of water. Jalaruha Shriya, appeared very beautiful because of blooming lotuses all around. Dvija Alakula Sandana Stavakaha, the birds, especially the cuckoos, and swarms of bees began to chant in sweet voices, as if praying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vanarajaya, the green trees and plants were also very pleasing to see. Vavo, blue, Vayu, the breeze, Sukha Sparsa, very pleasing to the touch. Punyagandha Vaha, which was full of fragrance. Suchihi, without pollution by dust. Agnayacha, and the fire, as the place of sacrifice, Dvijatinam, of the Brahmanas, Shanta, undisturbed, steady, calm and quiet. Tatra, there, Samintatha, blazed, Manamsi, the minds of the Brahmanas, who because of Kamsa had always been afraid. Asan became prasanani, fully satisfied and free from disturbances. Sadhunam, of the Brahmanas, who are all Vaishnav devotees. Asura Durham, who have been oppressed by Kamsa and other demons, disturbing the discharge of ritualistic rituals. Janmamane, because of the appearance of birth. Janane, of Lord Vishnu, who is always born. Tasmin, in that situation. Nedu, resounded. Dundubaya, kettle drums. Samam, simultaneously. From the upper planets. Very long translation. Thereafter, at the auspicious time for the appearance of the Lord, the entire universe was so charged with the qualities of goodness, beauty, and peace. The constellation Rohini appeared, as did stars like Aswini. The sun, the moon, and other stars and planets were very peaceful. All directions appeared extremely pleasing, and the beautiful stars twinkled in the cloudless sky. Decorated with towns, villages, mines, and pasturing grounds, the earth seemed all auspicious. The rivers flowed with clear water, and the lakes and vast reservoirs full of lilies and lotuses were extraordinarily beautiful. And the trees and green plants full of flowers and leaves, pleasing to the eye, birds like cuckoos and swarms of bees began chanting with sweet voices for the sake of the demigods. A pure breeze began to blow, pleasing the sense of touch and bearing the aroma of flowers. And when the Brahmanas engaged in ritualistic ceremonies, ignited their fires according to the Vedic principles, the fires burned steadily, undisturbed by the breeze. Thus, when the birthless Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was about to appear, the saints and Brahmins, who had always been disturbed by the demons like Kamsa and his men, felt peace within the core of their hearts, and kettle drums simultaneously vibrated from the upper planetary system. That's the end of the translation. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Okay. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord said his appearance, birth, and activities are all divyam, transcendental, and that one who actually understands them is immediately eligible to be transferred to the spiritual world. Very important statement. I'll read it again. Take this factually, it's not just some words or eulogies. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord said his appearance, birth, and activities are all transcendental, and that one who factually understands them is immediately eligible to be transferred to the spiritual world. So simply by that statement alone, one can attain perfection in life, if one can understand. What does it mean to understand the birth, activities, and appearance of the Lord? That's a process of devotional service by when one engages in devotional service and hears the glories of the Lord. Gradually we understand through that process that Krishna is not part of this world. And his appearance in the world is simply for the benefit of the conditioned souls. So to give you an example would be, there used to be a kind of an age-old what we say, folk tale. We might call it a folk tale or some kind of idea that when the sun appeared, and then when it disappeared, that was the end of the sun. And then the next day you get a new sun, and it comes again. But we understand from our angle of vision that the sun appears, travels through the eastern, southern sky, and then disappears over the western horizon, and then it goes somewhere else. It's out of our view, but someone else has experienced the presence of the sun depending on where they are. So in the same way, Krishna is appearing in one of the universes somewhere in the material world constantly. His pastimes and his activities are constantly going on somewhere, someplace in the material universes. So whoever is in that particular place, they get the opportunity to get the benefit of the Lord's appearance. But then he disappears. That doesn't mean the Lord no longer exists. He just goes somewhere else. And that's even a common practical understanding. Just because you leave the house and the persons who are in the house see you, doesn't mean you no longer exist because you're not within the purview of someone's vision. So in the same way, the Lord's appearance in this world is transcendental. Now, that doesn't give you much of an understanding of the nature of the Lord. What does it mean to be transcendental? Well, one thing we can understand, it has nothing to do with anything material. In other words, when we analyze how things go on in this material world, we see there is a certain pattern. But Krishna doesn't fit into that pattern. He comes into the pattern, creates his own pattern, and then disappears. It's completely. It's just like, to use a very crude example, if you're in a rainstorm, but you're fully covered with all the necessary rain clothes, coat, hat, whatever, umbrella, you can be in a very torrential rainstorm and still not be wet at all. But those who don't have that covering, they experience the rain. So in the same way, Krishna appears in this world, but he has nothing to do with this world. He doesn't touch the world at all, although it looks like it. That's a little bit of the divyam, at least in a philosophical, theoretical explanation. But to realize that, how do we realize it? This is the purpose of John Mustami. It's the purpose of John Mustami, to hear about the transcendental nature of the Lord and how he appears in this world. And here, we see from this translation, everything became auspicious. The stars, the astrological arrangements, the decorations on the earth as described, the towns, the mining places, the cities, the villages, whatever was on the earth actually became a decoration on the earth and was seen in that way, even by those who were living on the earth. Everything was auspicious. Rivers flowed nicely. Green trees and plants were in their natural environment, blooming according to the arrangement of the Lord. Everything was nice. People's hearts and minds were completely peaceful. Simply by the Lord's appearance, everything changed. The whole atmosphere became, you might say, transcendental, free from the elements of the lower modes of material energy. And people who were there, they felt happy, even though they were afraid of Kamsa. Kamsa had created such a harassment for all the persons there, and therefore there was always the anxiety of the fear, what will Kamsa do next to cause disturbance in the life of us here living in this world. So we'll go on and we'll read. The Lord's appearance at birth is not like that of an ordinary man who is forced to accept a material body according to his past deeds. The Lord's appearance is explained in the previous chapter. He appears out of his own sweet pleasure. He comes for our benefit, but he really comes for his own sweet pleasure. We benefit because he wants to experience pleasure. That's Krishna. When we want to experience pleasure, sometimes not everybody benefits by that. So especially if the pleasure is not authorized. So, but when Krishna wants to experience pleasure, anyone who has the good fortune to be in that arena where his pleasure is being experienced, and he gets also great amounts of pleasure. When the Lord was mature for the appearance, when the time was mature for the appearance of the Lord, the constellation became very auspicious. The astrological influence of the constellation known as Rohini was also predominant because this constellation is considered to be very auspicious. Rohini is under the direct supervision of Lord Brahma, who was born of Lord Vishnu, and it appears at the birth of Lord Vishnu, who is factually birthless. According to the astrological conclusion, besides the proper situation of the stars, there are auspicious and inauspicious moments due to the different situations of the different planetary systems. At the time of Krishna's birth, the planetary systems were automatically adjusted so that everything became auspicious. At that time, all the directions, east, west, south, north, everywhere, there was an atmosphere of peace and prosperity. Auspicious stars were visible in the sky, and on the surface in all towns and villages, pasturing grounds, and within the mind of everyone, there were signs of good fortune. The rivers were flowing full of water, and the lakes were beautifully decorated with lotus flowers. The forest was full with beautiful birds and peacocks, and the birds within the forest began to sing with sweet voices, and the peacocks began to dance with their consorts. Very festival description of what is happening by just the anticipation of what is about to come. The wind blew very pleasingly, carrying the aroma of different flowers, and the sensation of bodily touch was very pleasing. At home, the brahmanas, who were accustomed to offer sacrifices in the fire, found their homes very pleasant for offering. Because of disturbances created by demoniac kings, the sacrificial fire had been almost stopped in the house of the brahmanas, but now they could find the opportunity to start the fire peacefully. Being forbidden to offer fire sacrifices, the Brahmins were very distressful in mind, intelligence, and in activities. But just at the point of Krishna's appearance, automatically their mind became full of joy, because they could hear loud vibrations in the sky of transcendental sounds proclaiming the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Something auspicious. That was pretty bad, but anyway. Something like that. On the occasion of Lord Krishna's birth, seasonal changes took place throughout the universe. Krishna was born during the month of September. Okay, I got a question for the audience. What day of the week was Krishna born? Huh? Thursday? No. Who says Wednesday? Those who say Wednesday are correct. He was born on midnight, the first minute of the day of Wednesday. That's mentioned by Jiva Goswami and Gopal Champu. So yeah, he was born on Wednesdays. So those of you who are born on Wednesday, you could feel good. The atmosphere, however, was very cool, although it appeared like springtime. Yet it was not chilly, and the rivers and reservoirs appeared just as they would in the Sarat fall season. The lotuses and lilies blossomed during the day, but although Krishna appeared at 12 o'clock midnight, the lilies and lotuses were in bloom, and the wind blowing at the time was full of fragrance. Shri Shri Pancha Tattva Ki Jai. Because of Kamsa's disturbances, the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies had almost stopped. The Brahmins and saintly persons could not execute the Vedic rituals and with peaceful minds. But now the Brahmanas were very pleased to perform their daily ritualistic ceremonies undisturbed. Okay, the business of the Asuras is to disturb the Suras, the devotees and the Brahmanas. But that time of Krishna's appearance, these devotees and Brahmanas were undisturbed. Umikyan timirandasya gina jana salakaya chaksu unmilitam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. Ma'om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tiname Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Sesa Sunyavadi Pastyatya Desatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If we do that all day today, we will feel the presence of Krishna. Even if you do it half a day. So, yeah, that's the idea. So here, sometimes the question is asked, in relationship to this pastime, there was a heavy burden on the earth. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhutanam adharmasya tadatmanham sujamiham pranityanaya sarunam vinasanaya chaduskritam dharma samstarpanartayam sambhavame yuge yuge vinasyanaya chaduskritam. So this is... What is that? That there was a heavy burden on the earth. What is that? Demons. Sounds familiar? Okay. We're getting a little bit of that taste today, anyway, but that's another pastime. And therefore, demons' business, as it's called, is cause disturbance to others. There's no provocation from anybody, but that's their program, to cause people distress, anxiety, whatever they can do to make your life miserable. And if they don't do that, they'll kill you so you don't have a life to be miserable anymore. These are demons. The word Ravana, we know him. Ravana means one who causes others to cry. That's just simply his meaning of his name. So demons, that's their program. So Mother Earth, she had been experiencing these demons that were causing this heavy burden. Mother Earth is the daughter, or you might say the wife, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So she acts according to the religious principles. But when people become irreligion, then everything goes down, and then people suffer, and the earth withholds, and there are so many calamities. Mother Earth gives, as a mother who loves their children gives, but she also withholds when the children don't behave. And she's also there to punish when they really don't behave. So she is the agent for the Lord in this material world. So she has now been overburdened. She's a mother. Her name is Bhumi Devi. She's a living entity. It's not just some idea that sounds very nice, but she is a living being. And now she's distressed. She offers prayers to the demigods for relief. The prayers go all the way from Indra to Brahma. Brahma makes a note of it and says, we can't do anything, the demons are too much. We have to, this is the job of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they go to the ocean of milk, which is there's a planet in this material world called Dhruva-loka, and on that planet there's an ocean of milk called Sweta-dweep, and there Lord Vishnu resides in this material universe. And the demigods, if they come to the point of not able to solve the universal problems, and it's nothing they can do, then they petition the Lord for the Lord to do something. So in this case, they did, and the prayers they offered are very nice, called the Purusha prayers, that's mentioned. Beautiful prayers offered by Brahma along with many of the chief demigods. And the Lord listened and heard the prayer. Of course, he knew everything ahead of time, but it was time for the Lord to come. So you might ask, well, what was the situation prior that caused the Lord to have to come? Well, it mentions in the Mahabharata that when Purusha was on earth, he didn't like Kshatriyas, especially Kshatriya kings who were very proud. And so he made it his policy to rid the world of these proud Kshatriya kings. So he killed 21 generations of Kshatriya kings. That's a lot. And now what happened was there was hardly any rule left on the earth because all these Kshatriyas were killed. So now something had to be done to reestablish a new rule, and something that would be auspicious, something that would be religious or saintly. And so the royal families, who are now bereft of their ruling king, were in a quandary what to do. How do we reestablish our rule on the earth? So there was an idea. And the idea was the sages were also concerned. The rishis, the sages, they were also concerned. Now there is no leadership on the earth. What to do? Because the sages, they work in conjunction with the leadership to give advice. So then there was some plan made that the princesses, the daughters of the kings, would have union with the sages and produce a new class of saintly kings called Rajarsis. So that was a great sacrifice on the part of the sages, but they did it because they knew it was a service that was needed to be done. And after some time, a complete saintly rule was over the earth again. A whole class of saintly kings got reestablished again. But you know what it's like in the material world. Everything's temporary. Sometimes we don't want it to be, but that's just the way it is. And sometimes we want it to be, and it lasts longer than we do, than it should last. It's just the way this material world works. And so then, after some time, many, many centuries, there was a big war in the heavenly planets where the demons, they have planets all over the universe, also the demons, various types of demons. So they got together and attacked Indra and his forces in the heaven, and it was a huge fight. Now the demons were being destroyed, so they decided they needed some support to fight the demigods. So they decided that Earth would be a good place. So then there was a plan amongst the demons, and they all took birth in different species of life. And that's what you hear, all of these demons that Krishna eventually killed, Aghasura, and Bakasura, and Putana, and Sakatasura, and Keshi, and Vyomasura, Palambasura, all of these demons, Trinavarta, all of these demons were actually coming from this plan to retake over the earth and use it as a base to fight against the demigods. So now, and Kamsa, he was one of the main demons. So now, again, after reestablishing saintly rule, the earth was back again with burden with so many demoniac kings. So that's where it takes us up to the present day, and that's where Krishna comes. So you get a little bit of understanding how those things happen. This is the nature of the material world. This is just, Prabhupada said, don't stay around. Try to go back home, back to Godhead. Kali Yuga is only going to get worse. But Lord Chaitanya's process is here. And because of that, we can take full shelter of Lord Chaitanya's process and chant the holy names of the Lord and be completely free from the effects of Kali Yuga. Now I'm going to read something from the Hari Bhakti Vilas, and it's called the Vow of John Mustami. It's a regular observance, and by following John Mustami, and I'll read what are the requirements for following John Mustami, one gets freedom from all sinful reactions immediately, if you follow this carefully, and all kinds of transcendental benefits. Prabhupada established John Mustami, and what he did, he demonstrated what he wanted for us to perform today. Aside from the activities in the temple, which will be, the regulated activities, Prabhupada said every half hour we should be alternating between hearing about Krishna's pastimes and chanting japa, going back and forth. So those of you who take part in temple programs all day, you'll have a full day, but those of you who decide to do something else, here's the way you can actually benefit from John Mustami. And then Prabhupada said there should be a special, this goes all the way up to midnight. We fast all the way to midnight. Prabhupada said feasting is fasting, and fasting is feasting. He says there's no difference. Now, can we actually come to that realization? When you fast and you engage in hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, you'll start to understand, yes, this is nice. Don't bring anything else. This is so nice. Prabhupada also writes, it's the most opulent day for the festival of devotees with great pomp. And in India, every house, at least every Hindu house, celebrates John Mustami very opulently. Krishna emphasizes how it's important to emphasize how crucial this Krishna consciousness is. And then Prabhupada quotes this verse, Janma karma chime divyam evam bhavati tatvadaha taktvat paham purnam janma naitimam eti sarjuna. We mentioned that earlier, how by hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, getting absorbed in the activities, and this should be the only activity in today's activity. We can put everything else aside today and simply focus on Krishna and the activities of John Mustami. Okay, so I'll read from the Hari Bhakti Vilas what are some of the activities, or the activities, there's 19 of them, that are actually the standard for following John Mustami. We probably won't be doing all of these, but this is what it's mentioned. Rising early and taking bath. 2, physically announcing to the Lord one's determination to follow the vow of fasting and keeping that sankalpa throughout the day. 3, hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna's names and his childhood pastimes throughout the day. Continue that throughout the following day until breaking one's fast. So actually John Mustami goes all the way up to tomorrow. That's the actual ceremony. Until we actually begin our honoring of Srila Prabhupada. Bathing the deities on the altar and offering them a new dress. Bathing at midday in holy river and other bodies of water. Performing abhishek for the deity, along with the deity of Devaki. Interesting. Constructing a maternity ward, it's called Sutika Griha, and having little deities of Krishna and his parents as well, and bathing them. Installing Pranapatisha and worshipping the maternity ward. Worshipping the moon with Arghya at the moonrise. Describing the events of Krishna's birth and childhood pastimes, performing dramas that depict the same, and reading Bhagavad Gita, especially live-kirtan. This is number 11. Performing a birth ceremony prior to midnight, including bathing Krishna, cutting the umbilical cord, worshipping goddess Shasti, and having a name-giving ceremony for Krishna in the maternity ward. You see how elaborate the actual ceremony is. Decorating the deity room before midnight. At midnight, making offerings and performing arti. 14. Honoring a feast of Ekadasi Prasadam at midnight. 15. Hearing narrations of Krishna's pastimes as well as singing and dancing throughout the night. After a feast, you're all ready, right? Everybody's ready for singing and dancing. At dawn, performing one's morning duties and offering prayers to the Lord. Performing worship of Durga Devi. I think we can just acknowledge that's listed here. Distributing charity and feeding the brahmanas. This is important, especially for grihastas. They should always, every day, grihastas should offer some kind of foodstuff to some living entities. And if one can feed the brahmanas, that is the highest form of charity. Completing the vow by breaking one's fast. And then here, this is written by Shivaram Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada may have made concessionary detail alterations for his disciples and followers, but he maintained and preserved the essential aspects of John Mustami to do nothing else but glorify Krishna. That is some of the ideas of John Mustami. So I'll speak a little bit about the actual pastime of Krishna's appearance, although my memory of it here, actually it is written here. But Kamsa was the king of all the demons. We heard from His Holiness Kadambakanana Maharaj how he had subdued all of these other demons. That's mentioned in the Garga Samhita. That all of the powerful demons that eventually came to cause trouble to the residents of Vrindavan and tried to kill Krishna were subjugated in a fight by Kamsa. Kamsa was very powerful. Very, very powerful. And very, very nasty. Really a nasty person. And he had made all these demons his servants. And if they didn't do what he said, you could read Garga Samhita where there were few that didn't want to do it, and so he even put more pressure on them and made them, do this service of harassing Krishna. That was Kamsa. That was so many demons. So now, Kamsa he's a maternal uncle of Krishna, of course, and Kamsa has a sister. His sister is Devaki. Kamsa is the son of Ugrasena. That's a long story how that happened. And Ugrasena is a saintly king, but his mother was somehow, duped into having relationships with a demon. The demon disguised himself and had union with the wife of Ugrasena, and that is how Kamsa came. So Kamsa is there, and now he takes his father's throne, throws him off the throne, captures the throne of Indra in the heavenly planets, and brings that throne down to Mathura and sits on the throne. Prabhupada said, this is like a side note, the demons will do anything. And then he said, they will do anything. They'll kill their parents, they'll kill their sons, they don't care. This is a real demon. Anything for their own sense gratification, They would do. And Prabhupada said, and right now in Kali Yuga, Prabhupada said, the demons are only increasing. Haribol. Good news. But Lord Chaitanya's movement is also the counteracting of this demoniac force in the world. It's the only counteraction. And we have that conviction that there's nothing that can save us or the world than Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. And it's the Sankirtan movement that is the most powerful force of Lord Chaitanya's movement. It can make these demons look like just like insignificant little insects. That's the power of this movement. Very powerful, because it's empowered by the Lord itself. It's not different than the Lord. And so Kamsa now, his sister's getting married to one very respectable and very saintly person named Vasudeva. Now Kamsa gets a little bit of feeling of, I want to do something good for my sister. Sometimes demons do that. They become nice for a little while. And it makes them look good. As Krishna also says that in the Bhagavad Gita, they give in charity. They give in charity. So they think, well, I give in charity, therefore, people will even respect me more. And so it's just, they don't really care. They just do it in order to get some, benefit from that. So Kamsa was feeling a little, nice. So he wanted to drive the chariot to the home of Vasudeva, where his sister would now be residing. And so he takes the reins, he's feeling good about doing this service, and then they're on their way, and then the voice comes out of the sky, Kamsa, you're a fool. The 8th child of your sister will be the cause of your death. Devaki, Vasudeva, everyone heard it. Kamsa became completely overwhelmed with anxiety. He changes his mind. Now there's no threat from his sister. But still, an 8th children, now how far in the future is that? That's a long time when you think about it. Now he's ready to kill his sister. Demoniac mentality. Doesn't have any regard for anything. So he takes out his sword, but Vasudeva is very diplomatic and very quick. It's the duty, this is a side thing. You ready, guys? You got this one? Okay. Ladies, they know this, but the men sometimes forget. It's the duty of the husband to protect the wife. That's one of the jobs of being a husband. You have to give protection to your wife. That means you have to risk your life even if they're in trouble. That's the duty, according to Vedic culture. I remember I was giving a class in Croatia. It was at the camp, and I was talking about this particular subject. And the husband was sitting on one side, and the wife was sitting on the other side. And a big hornet bug, big one with a big stinger, start flying around this one lady, Mataji, and she's going, ah! So I looked at her husband. What are you going to do? He didn't do nothing. What happened? I'm just telling you what the philosophy is, and the practical application also. He didn't do nothing. Somehow or other, she survived. Husbands need a little bit of encouragement nowadays.
Need the hornet sting, perhaps.
Huh?
Need the hornet sting, perhaps, to get them moving.
Yeah, okay. Whatever you said, I agree. I'm not sure what you said, but I agree anyway. Yeah, so now he takes out his sword, but Vasudeva is he's thinking what to do. And then he starts to speak about the temporary nature of the material world, and death will come to everyone. So Kamsa, why are you getting so riled up? Everyone has to die. Now, you tell that to a demon. It wasn't the best thing, but he somehow interrupted Kamsa's activities, and therefore he spoke philosophical. Kamsa was not listening. He was getting more and more angry. And then Vasudeva had to do something that he knew would work, and being very intelligent, he said he had to save the situation. It didn't matter what was going to happen in the future. Sometimes you just have to save the situation. So he did that. And he said, Kamsa, don't worry. The 8th child, when it's born, I will present it to you, and you can, whatever you decide. Kamsa was pacified by that. And somehow he continued. Now, Narada Muni Bhajai